Okay, hi everyone. I'm course officer grade 5 Tony. So today I'll be sharing with you guys on leadership styles. Hold on, let me just share my screen. Okay. Everyone can see my screen. If you all can't see my screen, just unmute yourself and let me know lah. Okay, so I assume everyone can see my screen. Okay. So hi everyone. Once again, I'll introduce myself. I'm course officer grade 5 Tony. So today we'll be going through a lecture on leadership styles. All right, so first of all, the objective of this lecture. So today I'll be introducing to you guys four kinds of leadership styles, four very basic kinds of leadership. Uh, and by the end of this lecture, ideally, you'll be familiar with the key characteristics that differentiates each of these styles. And of course, this also means understanding the pros and cons of each leadership style. And finally, I'll be covering some key things that great leaders have, regardless of what type of leader they are. So all this, of course, is meant to let you apply on yourself as you eventually come across and work with different groups of people. So what comes to your mind when you think of a great leader? Y'all can feel free to share on the chat room as we go along. So is it someone you respect, perhaps? Or is it someone you love? So what comes to your mind when you think of the characteristics of a great leader? So with that, I would like you to think of some leaders in your life. So as you think of these people, tag maybe a word or a phrase to describe them. And you may flood the chat room as well. So let's have maybe about just 3 minutes to have a quick uh, thinking and sharing afterwards. Okay, 3 minutes. Yeah, I hope you guys got bring your notebooks, whichever, so y'all can write down on the notebook as you're thinking, okay? Okay, so we have a very quick 30 seconds left. So wrap up on your thoughts, and I'll get maybe one or two of you guys to share. Okay, let's get some people to share. Or do we have any volunteers, first of all? Okay, then if not, let's get Kranji Secondary, Yun Yu. I see you there.
Yes.
Hi, Yun Yu. Yes, so why not you tell us about maybe one or two leaders in your life?
Uh, my parents.
Okay. Would you like to elaborate more?
Uh, they they supported us.
Okay, so a supportive role. Okay. Let's get maybe just one more person. Hua Chong, Linus.
Which Linus? There's Linus Low and Linus Chia.
Or Linus Chia, since you
Um,
volunteered.
okay, so I think my NCOs are leaders.
Okay, I think so too. Yes, yes. So, what are some of these characteristics that you attribute to NCOs?
They inspire you to do better.
Okay, that's I'm glad to hear that. Okay, thanks for the sharing, Linus and Yunu. So I'll continue with my slides. Okay, so I'll say this once, and you probably hear me say it again at the end of the lecture. But by no means are you supposed to leave the lecture today thinking that you must fall within a certain category of leadership. Everybody, and yes, everybody has their own unique sort of leadership style, and that comes with a lot of self-awareness and constant reflection. So now think of how any of these leaders in your notebook might fall under the leadership style, which I will now slowly go through with you guys. Uh, let's start with the first style of leadership, democratic leadership. So democratic leadership. Democratic leaders distribute the responsibility amongst their members, and everybody in the team has an equal say in the decision making. However, do note that the leader will hold the final say. So in a St. John context, I want you guys to visualize this. Imagine you guys are going for a normal CCA training. What quality would a democratic NCO, as Linus was talking about, what quality would a democratic NCO demonstrate? What might be some troubles that he or she might face? And now what are some pre-existing conditions that must be met in order for his democratic leadership to be successful? So I'll give another maybe just a short 1 minute to have a quick think about this before I go on with my slides. Okay, a quick 10 more seconds. Okay, can. So I want to go through. So definitely, the benefits would be that the team would be motivated and they would be encouraged to voice out many opinions and ideas. Maybe some of y'all have gotten that. And perhaps during a democratic debrief, the feedback raised by you guys to NCOs can be used to discuss how to improve the next training session. So in the long run, this creates a very strong and a very productive team. Okay, but yet on the flip side, imagine that everybody had different views during the debrief, many conflicting beliefs. So some people want more food drill, some people want more first aid. So this debrief is gonna drag, right? So you might now see that NCO is struggling, in fact, to cater to everyone's wishes. Like, oh, you want first aid, you want food drill. And in the end, some people's feedback might not be acted upon. And for these people, they might feel as though the NCO simply didn't listen to them. So now imagine the bunch of platoon. Imagine the platoon that you're leading now is a bunch of fresh secondary ones who just entered the CCA. So what sort of feedback might you hear from the side ones? Would it be possible to say that they could be a little distracted? Some of them might be fooling around amongst themselves, still fresh to CCA. Could they raise some nonsensical ideas? So you realize that democratic leadership really depends on the people that are leading as well. So this type of leadership really works when your team is mature enough, okay, to give good suggestions and mature enough to understand that their individual requests cannot all be catered to, and ultimately they have to trust the NCO or whoever is leading them that he or she can see the bigger picture and he or she is qualified to make the final call. So that is when democratic leadership works. Okay, so for anybody, for you guys who may not know who this is Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, and the country's first black president. So this guy was noted for his democratic beliefs that all was equal in their rights, despite the difference in their skin or their political belief. He was famous for forgiving his enemies, who actually caused him, right, to be in jail for over 30 years. So imagine that someone puts you behind the bars for 30 years, you lose your freedom. And afterwards, the first thing he does when he gets out is forgive these people. So there's actually a movie that came out about this, and I suggest that you all watch the movie when you have time. It's pretty inspiring. So this is just some quotes that he said. Okay, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy and becomes your partner. Of course, I'm not expecting all of us here, even myself, I cannot become a Nelson Mandela, but let's just emulate this democratic spirit that he has. Okay, so next, we have autocratic leaders. So what are autocratic leaders? This is the second type of leadership. These leaders are strong and firm leaders that make decisions without much consultation and feedback from the team. So maybe you can already think of some examples of such leaders. So again, let's think of this in a St. John context. Imagine you're participating in a regular training session and your NCO is an autocratic leader. Now, what kind of person would you describe the NCO to be like? And can you think of a scenario where it would be necessary to have an autocratic NCO? So I'll give another 1 minute and write down your comments and reflections in your notebook. So afterwards, right, there'll actually be a quiz. And the quiz, you'll be entering your reflections as well as some knowledge you have learned from this lecture. So yeah, do take the time to reflect. Roughly 10 more seconds before I continue. Okay, so definitely if you look at the disadvantages, you might visualize the NCO giving you guys very hard orders. Fall in, knock it down, push up position, change. Down items out, everything out, back check, now. Already you can feel the sadness, right? Almost being abused by the NCOs. And I bet you wouldn't be feeling too creative in this setting. Yet on the flip side, you cannot deny that this makes things a lot faster. On a normal day, you could be talking to your squad mates, like, hey, what do you have for lunch, for recess, as you move to fall in. But on that particular day, I assure you that everybody will be running frantically to fall in. A 1 minute fall in could be cut into a 10 seconds fall in. So given that this sort of leadership is so harsh, and given these benefits, how can we still make this autocratic leadership work? The leaders still have to respect the team. They still need to communicate and explain their decisions. Why were you guys punished? Why is it important that we fall in fast? So as a cadet, think back to your punishments the NCOs might have given you. During those punishments, did you feel that they were dealt out fairly? Were the punishment standards consistent? Did they sometimes, expect that you move fast, while on other days they just laugh and tell you guys, hey, it's fine lah, just take your time. So we think back about the case of the fresh Sec 1s, okay? Let's say that they're totally joking around and not paying attention to the task at hand. Perhaps then more direction needs to be given. So note that I've been giving you guys many examples of punishments and of commands, but the tone doesn't need to be a scolding one. Simply directing the cadets instead of scolding them can also be autocratic instead of democratic. So in life, let's think of a good example of such a leader. It would be Gordon Ramsay. So some of you guys might have seen his videos on YouTube, Hell's Kitchen, Kitchen Nightmares. He's famous for scolding many profanities at chefs when they make mistakes and being very, very harsh on them. He even throws the wok at them sometimes in general. So why then is his employees still so loyal to this man? I mean, definitely to some extent, he is filmed in a certain way for the TV series, and it doesn't portray his personality in full. But beyond that, as a person, he is very clear in his pursuit for his culinary perfection, and he communicates this very clearly to his employees. So this he also gives them the right space to excel and to create dishes in their own freedom. And because of that, his harsh response to his employees' culinary mistakes now makes sense rather than coming off as very unreasonable and harsh. So these are some things that he said. Maybe you have heard it in the video before. Okay, so now let's pause to think of two questions. The first two questions. So what is the difference between democratic and autocratic leadership? And what are the similarities between these first two leadership that we have learned? Then lastly, think about one insight you have gained about being a leader thus far. So for this, let's have 3 minutes. Okay, so I sent a link in the group. At your own free time, you might go onto this. Actually, like right now, as you're reflecting, instead of writing on notebooks, you can go onto Padlet and write your responses there. So simply write it on a post-it, on a e-post-it lah, and then write your name as well, so I can see who wrote what. Okay, so about 1 more minute left. A quick 1 minute to just think of, gather your thoughts. Okay, hi guys. So, since I see many of you are still typing, maybe I'll just give another quick 1 minute to just finish up typing. Then after that, we can look through some of these responses. So far, I'm seeing many good responses. Okay. Okay, let me just refresh the page. So wherever you are, thank you for your responses. At one free time, you might continue to update on these responses so that you can also see what your other friends think about this topic. Okay. Wow, the responses are still coming in. Okay. Appreciate your enthusiasm, guys. Okay, Pang Chuan here has an interesting response. Okay, hold on, let me share my screen. Okay, there's Pang Chuan's response. Okay, Park Chuan from Hwa Chong, was it?
Yes.
Hi, Park Chuan. So why don't you elaborate on your response? It's still coming in. So what do you mean by giving more decision-making power to the team members?
So in democratic leadership, the leaders will often discuss like how decisions are made with the team members, and the team members also have a part to play in making these decisions. While in autocratic leadership, it's more often that only the leader is the one making the decisions for the whole team.
Okay, fair to say that. So what are the similarities? I noticed that you left it blank. I was still thinking.
I'm still thinking.
Okay, no problem. Okay, let's get Wen Qian. Wen Qian, are you there?
Hello.
Hi. So let's talk about the similarities. What do you mean that both are similar in a way that leaders will get things done? So you want to elaborate on that response?
They will make both can make good decisions, but then it's just democratic leaders give more choice to the team member. Autocratic leaders it's like have like more power than democratic leaders.
So sensing from what you're saying, I gather that you're saying that both are more task oriented. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, fair. Okay, so very good sharing here, guys. As you can see, this page is pretty filled. So do remember these responses because at the end of the day, there'll be a quiz as I mentioned. So we will require these responses. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Pardon this technological boomer. Shit. Okay. Okay. So let's move on now to our third type of leadership. So the third type of leadership is laissez-faire leadership. Okay, it's a very chim and long word, but how to pronounce it is laissez-faire. Okay, so laissez-faire leadership, these leaders are hands-off and they take a back seat rather than drive. So the purpose is to ensure that the team has the right amount of resources and the rest of the space is actually just granted to the team to free play. So let's go back to the St. John training context, right? What sort of team members do you think laissez-faire leaders are suited for, and why? Okay, so also, do you believe that laissez-faire leaders do like nothing? What is the key thing that these leaders struggle with, and what are some potential problems they may face? So many reflective questions here. Uh, I'll give just another short 1 minute to quickly think about this before I move on. Okay, so let's look at the bright side first. A laissez-faire NCO allows Platoon 3 to plan and organize their own training. Sounds of rejoicing from Platoon 3. They feel trusted by the NCOs. They feel motivated to come up with a decent plan. Perhaps the ones better in food drill lead the session, and same applies for first aid, home nursing, stretcher drills. Then we go on to the potential problems. The food drill session ran poorly, but because the NCO wasn't there, the platoon decided not to mention how the food drill went to the NCO. During first aid, the planning wasn't well enough, the time management was quite bad, and the time overran. So the lesson on a full body mobilization ended up becoming how to tie a figure of 8 for the ankle. So as a leader, how do you prevent this chaos? The trick is to find the balance between giving the right space and coming in at the right moment to save the day and redirect the team when the things go haywire. Generally, as described in an example, the team needs to be somewhat well experienced. You can't be expecting platoon 1 to be to hands off and expect them to run successfully on their own. Platoon 3, perhaps, that might work. So as a leader, you will still need to maintain a minimal interference. Let's say let's say the laissez-faire NCO had checked the first IC's lesson plans before allowing them to free play. He highlights to the IC that, hey, maybe in this part you're spending too much time, and this is how you might better manage your time. And after these necessary adjustments are made, there is not enough time for the first IC to teach and practice the entire full body mobilization, and while still maintaining the free play. So consistent feedback is also important because you can allow your team members to continue enjoying the freedom to develop while also ensuring that they understand where to go from here. Yeah. So now, let's try something fun. Okay, let's go through this example first. Okay, so a leadership example of a laissez-faire leader would be Warren Buffett. I at first thought his name was Buffet, but no, it's Buffett. So Warren Buffett is an American investor who is a very good example of a laissez-faire leadership actually, because when you look at his job scope, he basically has many experienced CEOs under his charge. These CEOs are the most experienced in their own companies. They are self-sufficient. They know best how to run their companies. So Buffett simply gets out of the way and let them do their job. They allow them to carry out tasks with freedom without much guidance because, honestly speaking, they'll probably know their company more than he does. And well, he is also the fourth wealthiest person in the world, so I'll say he's a pretty successful laissez-faire leader. Okay, so these are some quotes that he said. Can't make a good deal with a bad person. And if you're in the luckiest 1%, you owe it to the rest of humanity to think about the other 99%. So some striking quotes that he said. Okay, so let's try this zoom feature. Okay, so on your options, you see there's an icon for annotation. Use your annotation and click on stems. And the stems below, using heart shape to represent democratic, cross to represent autocratic, and a question mark to represent laissez-faire. Mark your stems on a scale to show me what sort of leadership style that you feel requires the leader to do the least. Sorry, that requires the leader to have the least degree of control. Okay, I'll repeat. So mark based on the degree of control from least to most. So least being on the left side, most being on the right side. You can mark on any space you want in the slide. Okay. A lot of question marks. Wait, stop doing question marks, guys. Okay. Oh, I see very little crosses. Maybe everyone just put minimally one of each lah. I mean, I feel many people are putting a lot of hardships. Okay. So as you're still stamping, actually you all can stop now. Maybe I'll get some people to share. Asia from Kanji. So where do you place your three stamps?
I don't know how to place the stems.
Oh, you're still figuring out how to place the stamps.
Like I don't know what's the function.
Oh, it's annotation. Okay, but let's just say you're placing your virtual stamp now. How are you going to place the stamp?
For the LSF, I will place at the least.
For LSL, we placed at least, okay. And at the most?
Autocratic.
Okay, so democratic will be somewhere in the middle-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Asya. Let's get someone else. Let's see. How about... Okay, never mind. Just try. Ah, Shivani from Bukit Panjang. Hi, Shivani. Yeah, Shivani. So how about you? Where did you put your three stamps?
I didn't know what to put.
Oh, sorry, Shivani. That was a bit soft. Couldn't really hear.
I didn't know what to put.
Oh, as in you didn't know the function, or you wasn't sure where to place the leadership styles.
I'm not sure of the function.
Oh, okay. But same as Asia, if I was give you a virtual stamp now, where will you stamp your leadership styles?
Slightly before the middle.
Or autocratic?
Yeah, autocratic.
So it will be towards the left side of the screen, is it? Okay, I think a bit of poor connection. Let's get someone else. But thanks, Shivani. Let's get Zhi Cheng from HCI. Hi, Zhi Cheng. Hi. Zhi Cheng, are you there? Why don't you share with us about your response? Oh. I think you cannot hear me. Jason, can you hear me? Are you muted? I think it's because
Sorry, I was lagging just now, so I couldn't hear your name.
I see. Okay. So Jason, where do you place your stamps, or do you not manage to find a function as well?
I managed to put my stamps.
Oh, so where do you put your stamps?
I put LSF as the least degree, Democratic as in the middle, and autocratic as the highest degree.
Okay, Ken. Thank you for your response, and good luck with your connection as well. Okay, Ken. I'll be moving on. Okay, so you guys can stop annotating now. Okay. So now that we have finished annotating the leadership styles, we have figured out the least degree is generally laissez-faire, right? And the highest degree of control is generally autocratic. So democratic is generally in the middle. So now let's think of the next question. Which of this leadership style requires the leader to do the least? Maybe Yuke from Kanji. Yeah, Yuke, unmute yourself, yeah.
So for the least degree of control by leader, I'll put LSF.
So which leadership style do you think requires the leader to do the least? With reference to the second question.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, so the second question, right? Which leadership style, democratic, autocratic, and laissez-faire, do you think requires the leader to do the least? Meaning the leader don't need to do much on. Laissez-faire, okay. Why do you think so?
Because it's a hands-off approach, and the leader would have only have to give feedback, overlook the team's progress.
Okay, so because it's hands-off, so the leader will generally be doing less. Okay, Ken. Thank you, Yuka. Let's bring on someone else, maybe Charlotte. Charlotte from Kanji. Hi.
Hi.
Yep, so with reference to the second question, which leadership style do you think requires the leader to do the least?
The LSF.
Or LSF as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so why?
Because like they don't need to like supervise some.
Oh, so same reason?
Yeah.
Okay, Ken, thank you very much. Let's get just one last person. Shi Qi from Nanyang. Hi, that's you.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, so with reference to the second question, which leadership style do you think requires the leader to do the least?
I'll say LSF because the leader actually in this situation doesn't need to plan a lot. They just need to supervise and make sure that things are going in the right direction.
Okay, fair. So, I think we should see. So actually, most of you guys have the same sort of response. The LSF does the least because it's mainly a managerial role. So while that is fair to say that they might be doing less work, that is not always the case. Okay, so there's a common misconception that LSF leaders do the least because they in fact do a lot of background work in terms of planning and in terms of managing the balance between how much freedom you want to give your guys when you come in to give a bit of feedback. So that requires a lot of thought on your part as well. So maybe not on the ground execution, but the behind the scenes and a lot of thoughtful maneuvering of yourself as a leader is what demands of a laissez-faire leader. So it's a different type of work, but all the same, all three leaders have many things to worry about. But then yes, of course, I also agree with you guys that from least degree of control to the highest, I'll rank them the same as well. Laissez-faire being the least, autocratic being the most, and democratic somewhere in the middle. But the learning point here is that it will not affect the amount of work that the leader has to put in. With that being said, let's quickly note down one insight we have learned about being a leader thus far before we move ahead with the lecture. Yeah. A quick 30 seconds, perhaps. So after this, we'll be moving on to our last and final type of leadership of today, which is something that the school has been mentioning for many of your core, I believe. Okay, so the last style of leadership we will learn today is servant leadership. So maybe this term is quite familiar to most of you, and to some of you, if you're more unfamiliar with this term, it's okay. I will cover it with you right now. So this type of leaders, they place the needs of others above their own, and they focus not just on the job, but on the people doing the job. So think in your St. John context, if you have an NCO or senior, that sounds like a servant leader. What do you think are the trait of these leaders? And yeah, what are some key characteristics? It's important to note what is the goal of a servant leader and what is the difference between being a servant versus being a servant leader. So a servant leader seeks to understand the needs of his team members and thereafter help them to realize their personal goals, while all the same working towards the larger organizational goals. In doing so, he inspires others to continue contributing to the organization as well, while still fulfilling their personal agendas. So this boosts the morale of the team a lot. It builds trust amongst the team. But this style of leadership can take a long time to achieve positive results, because after all, you're building people. You're not just focusing on tasks that can be fulfilled in maybe a matter of like hours or minutes. You're building people, and that takes a lifetime. It's very hard to constantly prioritize the needs of others above yourself as well. So back to being an NCO, back to the NCO example. Imagine a specific person, or just maybe a shadow in mind if there's no specific person that comes to mind. What kind of person does this leader have to be? Okay, I'll go on this slide later. So think of some values that come to mind, okay, and see whether it aligns with these values. So a servant leader, needs to understand your needs, and that takes empathy. In order to build you, a member of his team, he needs to not only be clear of you, but of himself. He needs to constantly commit to wanting to prioritize your goals above his own, constantly committed to wanting to grow you as a person. In order to build the trust within you guys, he needs to have good communication skills, of course, and good foresight in order to align your personal goals to the larger organizational goals. That's very important, because if someone's goals are vastly different from the big picture, then it's hard to achieve success as a team while trying to build your team at the same time. So above other characteristics, empathy, awareness, communication, foresight, the commitment to growth and to serve are key characteristics that are absolutely critical to make a servant leader. Okay, so now let's look at one example of a great leader, not just a servant leader. Steve, let's look at a servant leader example first. Okay, so a servant leader example would be Mother Teresa, who dedicated her life to serving other people. So I think it's something that we can't doubt, that Mother Teresa was really a motherly figure of kindness and of virtue. And if you see in the slide, she never sought personal recognition for all the things that she did. These were just some quotes that she said. You notice that there's a lot of love that comes out in what she says about making people happy, about judging people less. So let's now look at a great leader. Okay, just a leader. Steve Jobs. So these are just a bunch of things he said. As he goes as I go through some of these quotes, comment the leadership style that you think it fits in the chat room, or in or you can write down your notebook if it's more comfortable for you. The first one, if you want to make everyone happy, sell ice cream. Okay, next. My job is not to be easy on people. My job is to make them better. Next. It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. Note that for these quotes, you don't just need to fit into one leadership style. Next. Management is about persuading people to do things they do not want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could. Okay, next quote. Okay, so that's the end. So let's hold on to that thought, okay? That one quote that you can see from the chat room and perhaps what you have said, what you have written down in your notebook. Let's hold on to the thought that one quote is kind of different types of leadership elements to it. So now let's see one thing that Steve Jobs had done to do so remarkably well in his career. So, passion, unwavering passion about his company, his passion, intensity, and extreme emotionalism. A passion for the company and its people. So, what have we learned after all this sharing? Maybe I'll just give another 1 minute for you guys to consolidate your thoughts. Keep in mind that now we have covered all 4 types of leadership. So what's left is a lot of reflection on your part. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. Okay, so Steve Jobs had all those quotes demonstrating different leadership approaches, and some quotes even had a mix of leadership styles in them. So we see how a great leader like Steve Jobs blends different styles to suit his needs. And a great leader actually have their own unique blend of leadership style. Maybe it's 80% autocratic, 20% democratic. Maybe there's a 10% laissez-faire. Maybe there's a 90% laissez-faire. So the unique ratio and blend in which you want to lead others can also change from a daily basis. Yet, there are also similar values that great leaders share in common. So now let us watch 2 videos on leadership characteristics. But first, let me try and figure out this Zoom features. Okay.
Need a professional website? I created one for our startup using Wix. Let me show you how.
Yeah. One. Okay. Okay, thanks for waiting, guys. Let me now try to share the video for you guys. Okay. Nice. Hope you can see my screen. Let me just unmute and let me know if you can't.
Wherever you are, leaders are important. Whether it's to lead powerful organizations or just to make sure a group of friends are having a good time. Here are the 7 traits that all great leaders possess. Number 1, they radiate positive energy. There is nothing more important in a team than passion and the will to succeed. And having a positive leader is an important part of that. Sometimes I sign onto Facebook and I see these status updates that just reeks of negativity. These people are not good leaders, and more often than not, they are not very successful either. Great leaders radiate positive energy. Not only does that make them more likable, leading to more trust, it also boosts the team's morale. And countless studies have shown a positive relationship between team morale and productivity. Number 2, they have a proactive attitude. When something goes wrong, it's easy to blame someone else or to find out why it happened immediately. But great leaders put that aside. They shift their focus entirely on solving the problem. I used to be in charge of the takeout service at the restaurant I worked at. So basically, people would call to make their order, and my job is to make sure everything is packed and given to the right person. It was a really busy restaurant, so mistakes weren't that uncommon. This one time, after a customer came to pick up his food, I realized that we forgot to pack part of his order. I was fairly new at the time and I didn't know what to do, but luckily one of the owners of the restaurant was there, so I explained to him what happened. He didn't blame me. He didn't even ask how it happened. Instead, he told me to call the customer, apologize for what happened, and then tell him that we will personally deliver the missing part of his order to his house. At the end of the day, the owner sat down with me to talk about how we can prevent something like this from happening again, but he did it at the end of the day, not when the problem was still unresolved. Great leaders know what to focus on at any given point in time. They are proactive. Number 3, they delegate tasks completely. Great leaders realize that they can't do everything themselves, so they focus on the most difficult tasks and delegates the rest to others. Let's say you make more than $30 an hour, yet every week you still spend several hours cleaning your house and doing the laundry. Considering a maid costs around $30 an hour, you might decide it's worthwhile to hire one to do your housework for you. When I first started delegating my work to others, I was hesitant because I knew that I could probably do a better job than the person I'm assigning it to. For example, a maid might put your clothes in the wrong drawer every once in a while, but you should still hire her, because the extra time you get to work on more valuable tasks generally outweighs the negatives. Delegating also means fully trusting your team to do the task without micromanaging their every move. Great leaders delegate tasks to others and trust them to get the job done. Number 4, they are approachable. A great leader is one who their teammates could see themselves approaching whenever they have a concern or when they simply need someone to discuss things to. When Sam Walton opened over a dozen Walmart stores, he was still available to privately talk to any one of his thousands of employees. Was this the reason Sam Walton was so successful? We can't say for sure, but he is a prime example of someone who's approachable. And it so happens he's also one of the most notable leaders in the last 3 decades. There is a saying that's very appropriate in this situation, and that is, a non-productive work environment is one where employees are discouraged to speak up, fearing the loss of their jobs. Great leaders encourage feedback from all members of the organization. They are approachable. Number 5, they do what they expect of others. If you expect your team to work hard and produce great results, you're going to have to do the same. When I was a kid, I worked at Wendy's, the fast food restaurant. There were 2 managers there, Maria and Francis. Maria was very good at telling us what to do, but she would always be in her office talking on the phone with her boyfriend. We listened to her, but none of us really respected her. And that is because she doesn't place the same expectations for herself as she does for us. Francis, on the other hand, was different. He didn't have a lot of leadership traits. In fact, he even had trouble telling us what to do. But the one thing he did have was he pulled his own weight. When it was busy, he would grab the spatula and start flipping burgers alongside us. As a result, he gained the respect of everyone. Whenever he was our manager, we worked hard because we wanted to, for Francis. A great leader sets an example, and as a result, gains the respect of his or her entire team. Number 6, they are accountable. Your team's mistakes are your mistakes because you are their leader. Remember the restaurant example? When we left out part of the customer's order, the owner and I personally went to deliver what we missed. Imagine the owner of a restaurant coming to your doorstep to apologize for their mistake. That is unheard of, and yet that is exactly the level of accountability great leaders practice all the time. It's not just about responsibility, it's about taking the next step to make things right. Great leaders are accountable. And lastly, they are decisive. A lot of times, leaders have to make decisions that they are not sure of. But once they have enough evidence to suggest making that decision, they stick with it, and they do it with confidence. Imagine that you are the commander of an army, and you have to make the decision whether to enter the enemy territory from the north or from the west. There's no information as to which one makes more sense, but you will still have to choose. Because without you, their leader, half of your army might decide to invade from the north and half from the west, and some might even call it quits and retreat. Therefore, your job as a leader isn't to always make the right decision, but it's to make a decision in order to keep the team together. Wrong decisions could be fixed, but a scattered team is a recipe for disaster. Great leaders are decisive and confident in their decisions. I hope these tips help you become a better leader. And as always, I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, so these are the 7 things. Since I paused my screen, you guys can just you can note it down, I guess, in your notebooks. And you don't even note down everything he says because it's just one video. But anything that you agree with or believe in, you can note it down. So positivity, proactiveness, dedication, approachable, leading by example, accountability, and lastly, decisiveness. Okay, so for the next video, I will only show maybe just one or 2 minutes of it. Then afterwards, the rest of it, y'all can watch at your own free time lah.
Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one.
Okay, so that was only about 3 or 4 minutes into the video. The whole video is 18 minutes long video by this speaker. The speaker just now is Simon Sinek. And he's a very famous speaker. Some of you might have actually heard this video before. So if you're interested in the rest of the 18 minutes, you can have a free time to watch it. The link is in the slides, which will be uploaded in the Google Classroom. Okay, so let's go back to the slideshow. Okay, so okay, so the second thing is that you need to know yourself really well to be a good leader, to know what blend of leadership style suits yourself the most. The self being what makes us unique. A self-awareness is hence an awareness of our personality, of our strengths and weaknesses, of what makes us unique. So as a homework, first of all, this is important because yes, it makes positive behavioral changes that can lead to greater interpersonal and personal success. Okay, so as a homework, each of you guys should already have a student account for My Skills Future. This is a government initiative. So after this lecture, go to My Skills Future and try out the assessments there. In particular, it's the quizzes on skills, confidence, and work values. So there will be a quiz after this lecture, as I mentioned before. They'll require you to state your results. So do make sure to go to My Skills Future and get an assessment done. The questions are actually quite interesting as well. Okay, so the third learning point is that the needs of the team matter a lot. Throughout the day, we've been talking about different kinds of leaders and different kinds of cadets. So perhaps an autocratic style is preferred for Platoon 1. Perhaps laissez-faire leaders can take Platoon 3 and allow them to develop their potential more. So thinking back about the example of the back check, an example of debrief, can a servant leader be an autocratic leader at the same time? Vice versa. can an autocratic NCO be a servant leader at the same time? Similarly, can a democratic NCO be a servant leader at the same time? So as you think about these two questions, it will lead you to the last question. What does this tell you about the adoption of these leadership styles, and what does it depend on? So 2 minutes, since there are many questions here, to think about this. Okay, yeah. So, okay, I see a message from some of you guys that the My Skill Future portal is actually down currently. It doesn't matter. If I'm not wrong, there is that y'all don't have to complete the quiz by today, so you can wait until it's up again. It should be up on 24th August and onwards, according to you guys. So we'll check back on this and get back to you. And if we see that there is no time to do the My Skills portal assessment, then we will take it out of the quiz lah. Then you can continue with the rest of the questions. Okay, so let's get back to the reflection questions. Maybe I'll get just one or two of you guys to share a response. So, Xu Yan from Kanji. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, okay, so what was some of your reflection points regarding this slide?
So do I just answer the question?
Yeah, or anything that strikes you, lah. Your response, lah.
Okay, so for the first one, right, I think that a servant leader cannot be an autocratic leader at the same time. Because as a servant leader, they need to satisfy what all their members want to. And for autocratic, right, basically they really just dictate the whole thing lah. So they are not giving any freedom for the members. So they like both of them will crash into each other for their characteristics lah. Yes.
Okay.
And so usually, right, a servant leader would not need to exercise his authority over the groups. It's for usual because as a servant leader, right, they are usually on their own or like because they want to satisfy all what their members want to. So basically, they will usually will do their own lah. Yes, so they won't like dictate other people or to force people to do anything.
I see. Okay, thank you for your response. Okay, so just a little more, Xuan. So let's talk about a servant leader. Do you have anybody in mind that you recognize as a servant leader, perhaps an NCO?
Actually, I haven't met a servant leader before because like all the leaders that I've met before, right, usually they, most of them, right, they wanted a more organized group. When you want a more organized group, usually you can't satisfy everybody. Because like like all the people there, right? All they have different things that they have different mindset. So some of them they might want another thing. So it's very hard to satisfy everyone.
Yep. So thank you for bringing that up. So thank you, Xuan, for your response. So yes, this was covered as well in the slides that it's hard to satisfy many people. So a question for you to think about and for everyone else to think about as well is I do agree that it's hard, to demonstrate two leadership styles at the same time. But now let's think about this question. Is it possible for one person to have two sorts of leadership styles? Can I be a servant leader in a certain situation? And when the situation calls for it, for things to be done more decisively, can I switch my style to become more autocratic? Am I still the same person? So actually, you find that perhaps while these two styles is hard to employ at the same time, it is possible for a same person to be two types of leaders at different times. Okay, so how about we pick on Solihin? Hi, Solihin. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Or is it Ahmad? Hi, yes. So what do you think about this? Share with us some of your reflections about this slide. So in particular, let's look at the last question. After reflection, what has your current reflection tell you about the adoption of the different styles? What do you think the adoption depends on? Oh, it's okay if you need more time to answer. To think. Do you need more time? Can't tell whether it's muted. Okay, I'll assume that's a yes. Okay, let's get someone else then. How about Chanel from Kanji? Hi, Chanel. Unmute yourself and
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
hi. Yeah. So with reference to the last question, right? Do you have any reflections about what the adoption of different leadership styles depend on?
Like, depending on the situation, you need to change your leadership styles to.
Okay, so situation is one.
Like, depending on how the members act as well.
Okay, so situation as well as the different members of your team. Okay, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, if not, there's a good enough response as well. Thank you, Chanel. Okay, so let's move on to the last learning point of the day, which is that these lessons not only apply when you are a leader, but when you're a member of a team as well. Because as Chanel rightly pointed out, leadership styles depends largely on the team. So vice versa, as a team member, understand the leader you're working with, so you can adjust your working style to suit him better. Let's say you notice that someone is more of a laissez-faire kind of leader, then as a member, you should be taking more ownership. And you should tell him, take the initiative to tell your leader if you have any difficulties in anything. So he doesn't need to struggle by himself and figure out what sort of help you need, while trying to give you freedom as well. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the lecture. And to the ANCOC cadets,